What's up, everyone? I am the Kaiju no Kami, and today I'm going to be taking a look at Mill Creek's DVD release of Ultraman Gaia. As Ultraman Dyna grew to a close, Tsuburaya was unsure as to how they wanted to proceed with the franchise for their follow-up installment that was set to premiere immediately after Dyna's finale. Protecting the environment and telling us how much we suck as a race had become quite a prominent storytelling aspect throughout the 1990s. Godzilla hammered it down our throats with the 1992 film Godzilla vs. Mothra. Tsuburaya did it with the 94 direct-to-video Ultra 7 episodes. Even in America, we had an entire show based around this concept called Captain Planet, while older series such as G.I. Joe covered the topic.
To pollute the environment, Cobra unleashes the septic tank and evil eco-warriors, but the Joes have eco-warriors too!
Therefore, Tsuburaya hired Chiaki Konaka, who helmed an environmental episode Towards the Future, to take on the role of being the head writer to the next series, which was ultimately titled Ultraman Gaia. Konaka also chose to keep his Ultra world set in a realistic modern day as opposed to a futuristic setting in order to keep it relevant to viewers with the hopes that it would get them to understand his social commentary that would be strung throughout. As with every environmental social commentary, one question comes to mind. Can you tell a story without making it feel like you are talking down on the audience? Or was Konaka just shouting his beliefs at us? Let's find out. The heroes. In a surprising turn of events, Ultraman Gaia features two Ultra heroes, Gaia and Agua. Our titular Ultra is a college student by the name of Gamu Takayama, played by Takeshi Yoshioka. Gamu starts the series off belonging to a group of environmentalists who have predicted the end of the world and are doing everything in their power to stop it. This also meant assisting a secret military organization was being formed under the acronym of SIG. SIG stands for the Expanded Interceptive Guardians.
Right.
SIG is a small division within the entire world's military defense, the geocentric Universal Alliance Against the Radical Destruction, or GUARD. Back on topic, Gamu helped with the creation of SIG's specialized air vehicles that combine the aspects of a plane and a helicopter to help better their mobility. Of course, it is their lack of being able to properly pilot these machines that leads Gamu to enlisting as a member of SIG.
普通のジェット機とは挙動が違うんだって。
ファイターの推進特性はどうだというんだね。
あれの推進力自体はジェットですが、浮かばせているのはリパルサーリフトなんです。完成モーメントは3軸になる。
One important detail in regard to SIG is that they may cause you to think of another military team from another universe of superheroes. His determination to protect all life on the planet is also what drives the Earth to choose him to become its warrior of light, which Gamu decides to call Ultraman Gaia.
地球自身が使わしたんじゃないかなってそう思うんだ。地球はガイアっていう生き物だっていう。巨人の名前ウルトラマンガイアってのどうかな。
Gamu is a far superior lead hero compared to that of Shin Asuka. While he may sometimes lose his cool when a situation sours, he doesn't always take his failures out on someone else by shouting at them at the top of his lungs. He tends to try and analyze a situation before heading out into battle guns blazing unless he needs to rescue someone immediately. Plus, he can also speak German.
Ja?
Wo ist der Schloss?
Gehen Sie nur den Berg rauf.
Dankeschön.
Though his English is not as good.
If you enter this forest, Shazak will be
あのおじ
angry.
さんなんて言ってんの
We also get to meet his parents a couple of times, both who are still alive and doing well. Well, that was unexpected. He even gets a Godai Yusuke moment. Or did Yusuke steal that from him? He may also relate to some of the audience, for he is not a very clean person when it comes to his quarters.
これでも僕はどこに何があるかちゃんと分かってんだ。ナギ探すの手伝ってくんない
You, sir, are an idiot.
Gamu uses a homemade device that he inserted Gaia's power into to transform. Oh, sorry. I'm like experiencing some sort of PTSD flashback every time I hear Gamu shout Gaia, all thanks to the anime god Mars. Ugh. Unlike with Tiga and Dyna, Gaia does not have multiple forms he switches into at the start of the series. For the first half of the show, he's your traditional red and silver ultra hero who fights evil to the best of his ability. At the midpoint, he acquires an upgrade form where the V-like armor around his chest turns black. This ends up being his base form for the remainder of the show, while a super form emerges where the sides of his body turn blue and his shoulders bulk up, increasing his strength. Overall, I find Gaia's design to be far more striking than I did with Dyna, and I like how he had to earn his better forms later on. His fighting abilities remain the Ultraman standard, outside of the times the plot requires a new set of skills for that moment. Our secondary hero is the tsundere water-empowered Hiroya Fujimiya. You may recognize actor Hasai Takano, for he was the manta ray hero Kamen Rider Raya in Ryuki. Fujimiya was originally a member of the Alchemy Stars, the group Gamu is a part of, only to have abruptly quit the team for unknown reasons. It is discovered that he was given the powers of Ultraman Agul by the Earth's oceans, who want him to use it to better the planet by apparently eliminating mankind.
お前は地球の意志に逆らっている。
人類を救うのが地球の意志だろ。
今の人類は自然の頂点に立つには自己中心的すぎる。
ただ破滅将来体の犠牲になればいいっていうのか。
地球がそれを求めているなら。
Wow.Aren't you just a little ray of sunshine?
This misunderstanding leads him to constantly opposing Gaia, initially becoming a wanted criminal before being swayed back to the side of righteousness. Or was he already on the side of righteousness, but then manipulated by humanity's selfish ideals? You decide. In addition, he found himself infatuated with a news reporter named Reiko Yoshi.
ウルトラマンには人間の言葉が通じるって教えてくれたよね。なんとなく分かった。ウルトラマンは人間なんだなって。
Amusingly, Reiko's actress, Yukari Ishida, ended up marrying Takano, meaning their on-screen chemistry was natural for they fell in love even off-screen. Agul has two forms, with his base one being a blue and black body with a silver trim, while the one he gains towards the end is silver, blue, and black with a gold trim. Fujimiya being an anti-hero at the start of the series makes him feel more akin to your typical 6 Rangers of Sentai or secondary Kamen Rider, which was a nice change of pace for an Ultra series. It also helps that you can understand Fujimiya's point of view, even if he does occasionally make questionable decisions. The rest of the show's main cast revolve around the other members of Sieg and Reiko's news crew. Compared to other Ultra shows where we get about 5 to 7 members of a main team to be fleshed out, Sieg is comprised of a series of mini-teams. The commander of Sieg is Akio Ishimura, who is a vast improvement over Dyna's commander, and yet we never really learn much about him. They never go into details about his son Koga and how he is a Makai Knight defending the world from a group of demons called Horrors. Oh, wait, sorry, wrong series. I got confused as Hiroyuki Watanabe is in both. Akio is a stern commander who doesn't take crap from anyone while also being vastly intelligent. He comes to realize that Gamu's Gaia very early on and keeps the secret to himself, which is kind of refreshing because we will often see him supporting Gamu's decisions even when the rest of his subordinates question the kid.
彼らを変異させるきっかけを作ったのは我々人間の作った環境かもしれません。
人間が自ら招いた最悪。
Other crew members include Akio's chief executive Seiichiro Tsutsumi, a man who doesn't care what you think of him.
演習の成績は確かに悪くない。
我々苦労を出撃させないのは女だからですか？
私を男性優位主義者だと思うのならそれでもいい。 現状のチームクローを実戦投入するつもりはない。
And his boss, Tatsumi Chiba, who is actually a reasonable man, and we get to meet his nephew at one point.
僕はおじさんからもらった天体望遠鏡にボイジャー1号と名前をつけた。
There are 3 girls who act as the communication operators, with 2 of them being important to the show's overall narrative. The first is the European-born Georgie Leland, while the other is Atsuko Sasaki. Initially, Atsuko hates Gamu immensely, which we all know means she is going to be totally in love with him by the end of the series. So much so that in one episode when Gamu is partnered with the Canadian member of the Alchemy Stars, Catherine Ryan, she has a serious need to break pens.
あっこう、どうかしたの？気にしないで。なんかわけわかんないけど、超激ムカ。
Okay, that is pretty damn funny.
あの地下室の床にあったのと似てる。
I'm honestly not sure how to feel about Atsuko's infatuation with Gamu because for half of the show she is pining over one of the other members of Sieg who ends up falling for her sister, so it seems like Gamu's just the rebound interest. Catherine ended up falling for Gamu from their first meeting, which seemed like a more natural progression than where things were headed with Atsuko, even though neither plot ends up reaching a satisfying conclusion. Anyway, the communications duo are a likable pair and can often bring in some well-placed comedy to ease the tensions the show emanates.
いいな、制服カップル。私にもあんな時代があったな。
今でも十分ガキっぽいよ。
それどうしたの？
口止め料。
何の？
それ言ったら私怒られます。
Ai Hashimoto and Maria Teresa Gao portray these two.
裏切り者。だって口止め料もらっちゃったんだもん。
関係ないよ、そんなの。たかがアイスじゃない。
美味しかった。ガムにしては奮発したよね。
やっぱりあいつか。
やべ。
Stop!
What's going on?
一体何なんです？
Are you from SIG?
Yeah, we came from the aerial base.
Now, the concept of having smaller teams of 3 is an intriguing one and made me think of the Toei anime Dairuger 15. Unfortunately, like with Dairuger, it also means that only a small number of the characters are going to be developed. The first 3 teams are the Air Attack crew, compiled of Team Lightning, who will be the ones you will see utilized the most. Team Falcon constantly believes their next mission will be their last.
とうとう来たか。ええ、そのようですね。いつでも死ぬ覚悟はできてます。行くぞ。
And a trio of women pilots known as Team Crow. Team Crow uses music and hand signals to communicate with each other in case there are ever times when their equipment is inoperable. There is a land team who drive a tank, Team Hercules.
Okay.
Team Seagull is the name given to the trio who rescue civilians who may not have been able to escape a battle scene.
他2名が7階にいます。
日曜のオフィスビルでよかった。
Oh my god. We actually got a moment of someone essentially saying, "Thank God it's Sunday." It's also worth noting that one of their members is played by Samuel Papanin, who we've seen before as Bucky Bonds in Alba Ranger and a member of the iNet crew in Mega Ranger.
そう。人々が苦しむこと起こらない。それが一番。
While most of these members may not receive much in the way of character development, they all do get a great moment to shine, making their existence worth it. Except for the undersea team, Marlin, who I actually forgot existed. Yeah, Team Marlin gets a single episode to their name, and they didn't really do anything extraordinary, making them the most forgettable group of Sieg. I guess Gaia's budget would not allow Konaka to utilize Team Marlin the way he wanted to, but still. Another actor I should mention is Team Crow's Kei Ishibashi, who played Shinjo's sister in Tiga and Dyna.
自分には分かりません。なぜいつも命と引き換えみたいなミッションばかり。
Team Lightning's leader, Masami Nakagami's Katsumi Kaiju, is perhaps the most important member of all the teams, for he is the most fleshed out member of Sieg next to Gamu.
梶尾さん、 あなたは必ず帰ってきてくれますか?
Kaiju is a hot-headed pilot who can't seem to aim a gun for anything if he isn't inside of a cockpit, as we saw at one point against a wolf monster.
もう鬼ごっこは終わりだ。分かってる。
As for Reiko's news crew, they include the cameraman Michifune Inoue, who is nicknamed Rinbun for some reason, and her director Kenji Tabata.
タバさん、始めますよ。レイコさんもいつまでも化粧してないで、もう早く行きますよ。早く。
シグってご存知ですか? シグですか?
I was originally a bit hesitant on where the show was going to go with this trio, as they seemed like they were going to be nothing more than minute annoyances, only to prove me wrong a quarter of the way in. Reiko's subplot with Fujimiya aside, Tabata will often throw himself into danger when it comes to protecting others, as shown in an episode where a monster turned an entire village into mindless zombies.
天国って本当にあるのかな?
どうかな。たかしくんもおじさんもまだ死にやしない。
Tabata is played by Hiroshi Tsuburaya, who is the grandson to Eiji and is the lead hero of Space Sheriff Shider.
いい加減にしろよ。それでもし何も起こらなかったらお前の首だけじゃ済まねえんだろ。
何も起こらないわけないです。めぐみさんが言うんですから。
確かにめぐみさんは不思議な人だけど。
お前もうるさいんだよ。
Aisuke Sonoda is Rinbun.
人が。
怪我人などの正確な情報。
あ、めぐみちゃん?
The monsters and aliens. If there is one thing I absolutely must praise Ultraman Gaia for, it is in its monsters and aliens, who are superbly designed. My favorite creatures are a species of interdimensional beings known as Melzard. Initially, they seem to be nothing more than giant floating jellyfish, only to hold a more threatening appearance as Sieg's investigation continued. Every subsequent Melzard that appeared seemed more intimidating than the last, with one of them taking over an entire village thanks to the use of phone signals.
もしもし。誰?
Is it any wonder why our current generations prefer to text over talk on the phone? They've been conditioned to think a demonic being is calling to kill them. Gankyu makes his appearance into the Ultra series through Gaia, and goddamn have I never seen this beast be so terrifying. Even nearly melted, he can make you run for the hills. Other favorites include Pazuzu, the black and white Blitzblots, a monster that laid what seems to be xenomorph eggs, Mimos, an extinct tiger that was resurrected by scientists through cloning,
They're great!
And these robotic machines that can control the elements of Earth. Wind. And fire. Man, they sound like they're trying to start up their own music band rather than take over the world. One fascinating aspect is that Gaia does not have a lot of humanoid alien invaders. The vast majority of them are monsters sent to attack the planet from some race of beings known as the entity that brings destruction.
根源的破滅将来体は確かに存在する。それが私たちの現実だ。
Oh, I'm sorry. It's the entity that brings radical destruction. Or is it the radical destruction entity?
密かに進められていた対破滅将来体プロジェクトの準備はすでに終わり、計画の実行を待つばかりになりました。
I'm confused. Whatever they call it, in whichever episode you watch, they are a race of unknown beings who want to destroy the Earth because that's what they do. We don't actually get to see them in physical form, however, their presence and threat level are an ever constant throughout Gaia's entirety. Of course, they are not the biggest threat to humanity, as that job belongs to the most vicious beings of all, men in a cult.
本能が壊れてしまったんです。だから今来たんです。彼らが根源破滅が
We're gonna die! Yes, yes we are. The effects and music. Hey, what is this? Gaia is another series scored by Toshihiko Sahashi? Damn, I must be on a Sahashi kick, and I don't even know it. I mean, I just recently reviewed Kamen Rider Kuga and Agito. I'm currently watching Hibiki for review. Recently watched The Big O, and here I am reviewing another series he composed. This dude seems to be everywhere, and yet I cannot bring myself to hate his pieces at all. You can definitely tell he worked on Gundam Seed with a track like this. Both Agito and the Big O with this one. And then there are all of these wonderful samples to include. I've yet to hear a soundtrack from him I did not like. The opening song from Masayuki Tanaka and Kazuo Daimon is quite good as it's energetic without going overboard. It's certainly a lot better than Dyna's Bore Fest. Gaia does have two ending themes, with the first one, Lovin' You, Lovin' Me, sounding like it was taken right out of a Sailor Moon episode. Like, oh my god, I totally expected that when I looked up the artist, BB Waves, it was going to have Moon Revenge in their discography or something. But nope, that was not the case. This is one of the best closing songs to any Ultra series, which is why it was a major shame they changed it to the sleep-inducing Beat On, Dream On. Okay, Tomohiko Kikuda's song is not technically that bad, but it is inferior to Lovin' You, Lovin' Me. Lovin' You, Lovin' Me, Beat On, Dream On. Ooh, the innuendos are strong with these titles. Oh my god, you could have a field day with them. Nice going with the song names, Tsuburaya. Now with the music out of the way, I guess I should talk about the effects work of Gaia, which continues to impress. The CGI can remain a sore spot.
あのカプセルは地球にはない金属で作られていました。
やはりそうですか。
昨日の生物との関連はまだ不明ですが。
この先は崖だ。行き止まりだ。ストップ。
怪獣来てる？
I like the concept of the Siege ships folding open, despite the computer graphics not always looking good. The camera work remains stellar with spectacular moments such as these. The same can be said for the miniature work. Fight choreography is quite good, specifically those revolving around Aguo and Gaia's personal conflicts. Lastly, a round of applause to the people who were able to pull this off. The episodes. If you thought the monsters and aliens were Gaia's high point, you are wrong, for it also excels in the storytelling department. As with Tiga, there are a crap ton of episodes that relate to each other. There were creatures that were always reoccurring throughout the show, and this went beyond just the few I mentioned in my Monsters and Aliens section. Gaia is very story driven to the point where there is very little in the way of what one would consider as filler. Nearly every episode had some sort of significance that made it worth watching, even when it was at its weakest. All of this is also heightened by the show's more serious tone it kept in its entirety, as opposed to having a serious episode followed by a comedic one. The downside to this is when there was an episode that felt sillier compared to others, it came a tad out of place, as was the case with the one titled Ransom for a Monster. Ransom for a Monster features a monster egg that ends up in the hands of a failing factory. The owner and his only associates contact Seek, pretending to be an alien race, who want money in exchange for the egg's return.
じゃあ、もし身代金を渡さなければ？
フルート星人はアルゴナを使って街を破壊することも。
It's beyond ridiculous, and has a member of Seek who comes across as an utter moron as opposed to a competent soldier.
なんで KCB が俺の前にいるんだ！おお！
The best thing about the episode is a scene where Georgie gets called out for an incorrect idiom.
知ってる。そういうのって牛の知らせって言うんだよね。
牛？牛じゃない、虫。虫の知らせだよ。誰だ変な日本語教えたの。Atsuko!
Now, with that out of the way, due to Gaia's constant narrative, it was hard for me to narrow down my favorite to a single episode. I loved all of the episodes featuring the Melzard as they were very horror-oriented. There was a time twister of an episode that explored the reasons as to why Team Falcon always seemed to seek death. The big one featuring Gaia and Agul battling each other was another solid entry. Nevertheless, I think I'm going to pick the 29th episode as my favorite, Distant City Ukabar. This one is really weird, even by Ultraman standards. A warehouse driver believes he is from another land and everyone laughs at him about it.
こうやって車でいろんな街回ってるとさ、いつかウクバールに帰る道が見つかるかもしれないじゃないか。だってそうだろ？俺がこうして地球にいるってことはさ、ウクバールとこの世界がどっかでつながってるってことだろ。
A monster shows up, which he believes to be calling him, and an ancient city that looks like it came out of a Zelda game appears. It's really hard to describe, but it's a very unique tale that is also full of fantastic music, great looking miniatures, and stellar camera work. Lastly, Zyuohger fans might recognize a certain actor that makes an appearance in this episode.
It's me, Mario!
俺今日一日トラック乗ってたんだよ。宇宙人と。
宇宙人と？
今日俺、宅配便のバイト。
It was just a really oddball episode that was a lot of fun to watch and very intriguing with some interesting themes going on. I don't know how else to describe it without giving the whole ending away. But if you're gonna watch an episode of Gaia just to test the waters, this is the one to watch. The movie and special. The crossover movie and post-series special are on this DVD set, and they are something. Well, the special is not bad and is easily the best post-series feature of the TGG trilogy. It takes place 2 years after the events of Gaia, so talking about it would require post-series spoilers, and I don't want to do that to you. I didn't mind the way the feature played out, and it made far more sense with how the characters have aged compared to that crappy Dyna one that took place before the finale, even though the actors look completely different. Unfortunately, I cannot say the same about the Gaia movie that slightly features Tiga and Dyna, which sucked. I know I've had my qualms about Toei's versus films in the past. At least when they titled a movie something like Gingaman vs Mega Ranger, you got the entirety of both teams, Gingaman and Mega Ranger, in and out of costume for the entire movie. Apparently, Tsuburaya's definition of a team-up film is having the other Ultras appear in the last 10 or so minutes of the movie transformed only, as both this movie and the Tiga Dyna one demonstrated. It's very annoying. Anyway, the crossover film is set in a universe where Gaia is a TV series and a child accidentally brings Gamu to his world. It was quite amusing to see Gamu being chased by a bunch of children. And then admired by a shop owner. Another kid brings a monster to their world that sees Gamu having to transform into Gaia to stop, and getting the assistance of Tiga and Dyna to beat. Frankly, I wish the movie had played out like this. Oh no! Gamu splattered across the pavement. We've been conquered now. The DVD. At this point, you probably know what to expect, but I'll go over for those that may not. First, here's the mural completed with all 3 series from the trilogy. That's pretty awesome. As for the Gaia set, here's the cover of the slipcase, the backside. So the disc case comes out. We've got the cover, the spine, and the backside, which shows Gankyu, discs and disc trays, and then the booklet, which in the front, we've got information on Gaia and Agul, and then information on Sieg, and then monsters, aliens, and episode synopses. The video quality is still not great, but a vast improvement over what we saw in Dyna. Compression wasn't as noticeable in the series itself, while being utterly atrocious in the movies.
However, there is evidence that an attempt was made to interfere with the attack. A guard investigation has revealed that a man named...
There's also this horrid gray line on the side of the screen in the crossover movie that I have never seen since the days of VHS. It makes me ponder what the video source was Tsuburaya gave Mill Creek.
人は私に様々な願いをし、最後は自らの欲望により滅ぶ。全てを滅亡させる。
それじゃあ。
Audio was solid, with the two channels being quite heavy and clear throughout its entirety. Regretfully, the subtitles may be the worst subs out of any Ultra release.
君は今、僕の中に。
Phrasing?
Grammar did not make a lick of sense, with even the first episode having an issue within the first 5 minutes.
そんなことを言った？
言った。
There are times when I found myself lost because I missed a line trying to decipher what the previous line was saying.
ここにいることは知らせてあるのか？
でも大丈夫です。結構本人なんですよ、うちって。
Another example is in episode 38, where they would sometimes have the name of a weapon titled as the Earth-Piercing Bomb, only to change it a few minutes later to Earth-Puncturing Bomb, and then back to Earth-Piercing Bomb.
俺は腕ずくでも地底貫通弾の発射を止める。
地底貫通弾の使用を思いとどまっていただけませんか？
I have no idea who approved of these subtitles, but they need to be fired. There was an occasional line that was missing the subtitle entirely.
Puede ser. ¿No lo puede arreglar en 24 horas?
Entendido. Haremos lo posible.
And then the opening and ending songs are only subbed on the post-series special, as opposed to the series itself. Ultraman Gaia was a delight to watch, as it held a consistent tone throughout, and it was very plot-driven. Sure, not every character was fully fleshed out, but it doesn't matter because I enjoyed nearly every single second I spent with Gaia. Thus, Ultraman Gaia receives another resounding 5 out of 5 grubs and spandex. It's a shame the subtitle quality is atrocious because we will probably never get an official translation that is better. But you know what? Ultraman Gaia is a must-watch for any Ultra fan. It shows how to do an environmental message right without feeling like it is all shoved down your throat. Until next time, bye.
「レミングってご存知ですよね。数年に一度大繁殖の帳尻合わせで集団自殺すると言われているネズミのことです。
Lemmings? I've played that game before. It kinda sucked.